statement. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this might be an unusually early hour for you, but thank you for your patience. And I can say that we have had a very productive European Council, focusing on 3 central issues, amongst other issues, but those 3 were very much in the focus, as you may have noted when you looked at the agenda. The first of which was, how can we strengthen the competitiveness of European industry? Second, how can we use the frozen Russian assets to assist Ukraine militarily over many years? And how can we strengthen, as Europeans, our defense capabilities? On competitiveness, we agreed today that we have to put a lot of intensive effort into reducing bureaucracy in Europe and in order to increase the competitiveness of our economy. You may have read my letter that I sent to the President of the European Council, and a copy of which went to the President of the Commission. In the meantime, 21 member states are signed up to that letter. And this letter left a mark on today's debate, and that was exactly the impulse it was meant to provide. We talked in great intensity about a number of concrete steps that we aim to take, because we all agree that new growth in Europe has to be generated, and for that to happen, we have to agree on central aspects and focus on central aspects. One of which is that the European Union will continue to work in a consistent fashion on reducing bureaucracy. The Commission has set itself a very ambitious objective to achieve a total reduction of the bureaucracy burden by 38 billion euro. The proposal submitted by now was 9 billion euros, and achieved has only been a little less than 1.5 billion. So you see a lot remains to be done. What we've achieved so far is not enough, and what we need to see is a genuine cultural change. And this includes reducing excessive bureaucratic burdens and to simplify the acquis in all areas. And we should exercise tremendous restraint with regard to passing new legislation. Second, we really have to strengthen the single European market. There are far too many barriers here or hurdles. Let me give you a figure. The IMF has looked at matters and said that the barriers in the single market of Europe that still exist equal tariffs to the amount of roughly 45% on goods and roughly 110% for services. So these 2 figures give you an idea of the potential that can still be tapped here. The Commission itself the worst barriers, the terrible 10. So these hurdles or barriers have to be abolished. And one suggestion made by the Commission, which we support, is that we introduce a 28th regulation that only applies to the European Union, not affecting the national regulations. This is especially meant to apply to the startup sector, that we get a single European regulation without the need for change or amendments of national legislation, which is what we call the 28th regulation. And the Commission will have my full support for this. As I said this morning, and as the EP said this morning, I urge everyone to support this constructive cooperation of the Commission and the Council. This also applies to the Omnibus 1, which was rejected by the EP yesterday, which is a serious retrograde step. But such a step can be corrected, I believe, and I believe that the EP should correct it, and it has already expressed its intention to do so. But there are also 2 good pieces of news I can give you. We will have an extraordinary European Council on February next year, which will focus exclusively on the issue of competitiveness of European industry. That will be the only topic on the agenda. And Mario Draghi and Mr. Letta will be invited, who drafted the 2 reports on the issue of competitiveness and the completion of the single market. And the second thing, and I welcome that very much, we agreed on this today, the Mercosur agreement is to be, we will continue work on the Mercosur agreement, and the permanent reps have been authorized to sign it on the 19th of December. So the road has been cleared for the Mercosur, the signing of the agreement. It has to be ratified, and I trust it will be done at great speed and in a very short period of time. At the end of this year, we will also have a summit with the South American countries, and we can then let these countries know that it can enter into force. The second topic today was support for Ukraine. Mr. Putin continues his war of aggression against Ukraine. We've had, again, bombardments and attacks by Russia in Ukraine. He is not willing to engage in serious negotiations, and we Europeans have to draw the necessary consequences with both our partners on this and on the other side of the Atlantic. And I'm pleased to note that we've been able to pass and to agree on the 19th package of sanctions today. Europe has already reduced by more than 80% its energy ties with Russia, and by the end of 2027 we aim to end them once and for all. This, as I said, has been decided today with the 19th package of sanctions. And I welcome the fact that the United States, too, have decided to take substantive new sanctions against the Russian energy sector. This is an important message addressed to President Putin that we aim to increase the pressure on Russia on both sides of the Atlantic. And why do we do so? Because we want to impress upon President Putin that a continuation of that war of aggression does not make any sense. We increase the pressure on Russia in order to increase its willingness to engage in negotiations and to agree on a ceasefire. Ukraine needs a reliable perspective, especially with regard to military equipment. This is the signal of strength that we Europeans have to send out today. I provided an impulse for this, as you may know, at the end of September. Today we decided to draft all possible options by the next European Council, which will take place on the 18th of December. By then, these will have to be submitted. And a final point, the third important topic today was strengthening our own European defense capabilities. We aim to simplify European defense industry, to standardize and scale up this industry. But if we are to achieve a genuine scaling up, we also have to simplify rules in the area of defense. I therefore called for an agreement to be reached on the defense omnibus by the end of the year. I asked for this. The German government has a very clear, unequivocal position on this, and we expect a similar response from the European Union. The definition of capability targets remains the task of NATO. Implementing, complying with these objectives is the task that is incumbent on the member states of the European Union. And the EU must not duplicate these on the member states of NATO. The EU is not meant to duplicate these tasks. It can and must make a contribution towards strengthening the defense capability of Europe, where it has competences of its own. For example, when it comes to accelerating planning and permitting procedures. And I spoke out in favor of us setting a deadline by the end of the year in order to agree on this important defense omnibus. So, as you can see, we've had important negotiations, and I can conclude by saying that over dinner we also talked to the chairperson of the Eurogroup and the president of the European Central Bank about currency issues, and we also spoke about the digital euro. We would wish to see the digital euro be introduced as quickly as possible. So if it gets the approval of the EP, we will have the Council's approval. So we are on a good road here, but a lot remains to be done. And I'm therefore pleased that we will meet again this year and also well prepared at the beginning of next year, at the beginning of February, that is. That is the so-called Weiberfastnacht Day in Germany, but I'll have to spend it in Brussels. So I will then we will have that meeting for a whole day, not at the council, but in another building of the Belgian side. I am satisfied with the discussions and decisions of today. There is a general broad readiness to address and tackle the issue of enhancing European industry's competitiveness, and we are working on this task together. Thank you.